GlaxoSmithKline agreed to pay $750 million to settle a U.S. government false claims lawsuit over the sale of defective drugs. Glaxo is the UK's largest drug maker, and the U.S. Justice Department announced that accord today, resolving a lawsuit first filed in 2004 by Cheryl Eckhart, a former global quality assurance manager of that company. My guest is Patrick Burns. He is spokesman for Taxpayers Against Fraud. That's a nonprofit Washington group that publicizes the use of legal means to combat fraud against the U.S. He's in Washington. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you.
This is a mind-boggling amount of money. Talk about this lawsuit. What happened here? This isn't good, is it?
Well, it's not good, and it really has a human side to it. The simple story here is that GlaxoSmithKline was running a factory down in Puerto Rico that was more or less out of control, and the quality assurance systems just completely failed. And so we had situations in which heart medications were mixed in the same bottle. So you would have 12.5 and 6.25 milligram tablets of heart medications mixed in the same bottle, which means when you took your medication, you had no idea if you were taking the right amount, whether you were being overdosed or underdosed. We had injectable drugs for nausea and vomiting in which they were contaminated with microorganisms. We had antibiotic ointments that were contaminated with microorganisms. We really had a complete collapse of quality control. And here's the outrageous part. When FDA found out about it and told them to clean it up, they went through the motions, lied to the FDA, and continued to crank out, quite frankly, toxic substances.
So this wasn't something that for the entire period here they were not aware of, and they were just not keeping track of some shoddy plant. They were actually told, you've got a huge problem here, and they just didn't really do anything.
It was even worse than that. They were told they had a huge problem. The FDA came in and basically put them into a compliance mode. They put together a 100-person compliance team, and then they systematically lied about what they were doing. So out of 100 people who were in this compliance program, only one person stood up, showed up, and spoke up in order to get this thing to stop. Because what happened was the entire company circled the wagons and started to lie to the FDA. And that person was this whistleblower who came forward with an extraordinary amount of information to the United States government. And as a consequence, America's stolen money is being recovered. And might I say that the whistleblower award here is being paid entirely by GlaxoSmithKline.
Do we know of any patients or people that were harmed by any of this?
Well, I can pretty much guarantee you that the class action people will be trolling to look for those people. I've read the complaint, and I've read a lot of complaints over the years. It's a shocking complaint and very well written.
Talk about the process here, because, I mean, even though this is almost a 7-year lawsuit, in the terms of whistleblower cases, some that are going on right now, that actually happened pretty quickly, didn't it?
Well, some of these cases take a long time, yeah. 3 to 4 years is sort of typical in a False Claims Act case. We've had cases go for 16, 17 years. So the cases are very complicated. They're complex. And also the U.S. Department of Justice has terrific lawyers, but they just don't have enough of them. So it's, you can't catch all the eels in the ocean if you've only got 2 fishermen with 2 poles. And that's kind of where DOJ is. the U.S. Department of Justice needs more lawyers in order to be able to combat fraud effectively. But the way it works is a whistleblower comes forward, goes to a lawyer. The lawyer looks at the case, tries to understand the case, and then looks for evidence. And let me stress this. This is evidence-based litigation. You have to have a lot of evidence. This isn't the we said so or we think so. This is we can prove it, here it is, bag it, tag it, and drag it before the court. Then it goes to the U.S. Department of Justice. U.S. Department of Justice says, looks like a False Claims Act case to us. It goes to the defrauded agency. The defrauded agency says it has to look like a False Claims Act case to them. And so you have multiple levels here of oversight so that frivolous litigation is relatively rare. A lot of cases die right in the first year. In other words, a case is submitted, and 80% of those cases are declined. They're declined, I'll be honest with you, without a lot of work because they simply fail the smell test on day one.
And finally, for our legal audience who are watching, as you said, these cases oftentimes, though, if they proceed, they are very, very complex, aren't they? Especially when you're dealing with places like Puerto Rico as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're dealing with all kinds of deals. We're dealing in this particular case, we're dealing with pharmaceutical fraud in Puerto Rico, but we also deal with insurance fraud. We deal with defense systems fraud. We deal with hospital billing frauds. So these frauds can be enormous, but they require a certain understanding both of fraud and also of the particular billing environment that's going on. And if a case is in Afghanistan or in Iraq, for instance, evidence issues become very difficult very quickly.
Patrick Burns is a spokesman for Taxpayers Against Fraud. Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you.
I'm Scott Drake, and you're watching the Legal Broadcast Network.